In many relationships, women often find themselves giving deeply emotionally, mentally, and sometimes even sacrificing parts of their own needs to keep the connection alive. They communicate more, try harder to understand, and sometimes stay patient far longer than they should. But there are moments when a woman realizes that constantly being available does not always inspire the respect, commitment, or seriousness she deserves. Sometimes the most powerful shift a woman can make is not chasing harder, but stepping back with grace and dignity. When a woman vanishes in this context, it does not mean disappearing out of anger or playing emotional games. It means reclaiming her time, her energy, and her focus. It means redirecting the love and attention she was pouring into someone else back into her own life. This change can create a powerful emotional shift. When a woman stops overextending herself and begins prioritizing her own growth and happiness, a man may suddenly see her differently. The space she creates allows him to realize the value of what he might have been taking for granted. Understanding this dynamic is not about manipulation. It is about self-respect and emotional balance. When a woman values herself enough to step back from situations that do not match her worth, she begins to realize that she is not defined by her circumstances. She often inspires deeper appreciation, reflection, and sometimes even the commitment she had been hoping for all along. When a woman is constantly available in a relationship, she may not realize how much of the emotional rhythm she is carrying. She answers quickly, checks in often, listens carefully, and makes space in her life whenever the man reaches out. Her intentions usually come from a good place. She cares, she wants to nurture the connection, and she believes that giving attention will strengthen the relationship. But sometimes constant availability can unintentionally create a situation where her presence begins to feel guaranteed rather than valued. Human nature has an interesting way of responding to certainty. When something is always there no matter what, people can slowly stop noticing the effort behind it. It becomes familiar, predictable, and expected. This does not necessarily mean a man does not care. Often it simply means that he has grown comfortable with the idea that she will always be there when he chooses to show up. When a woman begins to step back from being constantly available, something subtle but powerful begins to shift. The rhythm of the relationship changes. Instead of being the one who is always initiating contact or maintaining emotional closeness, the other person is the one who is always initiating contact or maintaining emotional closeness. She begins focusing on her own schedule, her priorities, and the life she is building outside of the relationship. This does not mean ignoring someone or disappearing out of anger. It means that she no longer rearranges her entire world to accommodate every moment of attention. She begins responding when it works for her rather than dropping everything immediately. She becomes present in the relationship without making it the center of every moment of her day. This shift can create space that was not there before. When the constant flow of attention slows down, a man may begin to notice the difference. Conversations that once happened effortlessly because she always initiated them may now depend on his effort as well. Moments of connection that once appeared automatically now require intention. For many men, this is when awareness begins to grow. The change may first feel unfamiliar. He may notice that she is not as instantly reachable as before, or that she seems more focused on her own activities. At first, he may simply observe the difference without thinking too deeply about it. But as time passes, the absence of constant availability can encourage reflection. When someone who was always present begins to prioritize her own life, it can remind a man that her attention was never something small. The time she spent talking, listening, supporting, and connecting was a choice she made repeatedly. Once that attention is no longer automatic, its value becomes clearer. Another important aspect of stepping back from constant availability is that it allows balance to form within the relationship. When only one person carries the emotional momentum of the connection, the dynamic becomes uneven. One person becomes the pursuer while the other becomes the receiver. But when a woman stops filling every emotional space, it creates an opportunity for the man to participate more actively. Participation is essential in building genuine commitment. When a man begins initiating conversations, planning time together, or showing curiosity about her life, he becomes more emotionally invested. The relationship becomes something he contributes to rather than something that simply exists because she maintains it. This kind of involvement often deepens a man's sense of connection. Effort creates emotional investment. When someone chooses to reach out, make time, and show interest, they begin to feel more connected to the relationship because they are actively building it. Another important benefit of stepping back from constant availability is that it allows a woman to protect her own emotional energy. Constantly being present for someone can sometimes lead to exhaustion if the effort is not equally shared. When a woman learns to create healthy space, she gives herself the freedom to focus on the parts of her life that bring joy and fulfillment. This balance strengthens her sense of identity. Instead of feeling defined by the relationship, she remains connected to her own goals, friendships, interests, and growth. Her life continues moving forward whether the relationship progresses quickly or slowly. Men often notice this kind of independence. A woman who maintains her own rhythm and priorities appears confident and grounded. She is not waiting for someone else to determine how her day unfolds. Instead, she is building a life that reflects her passions and ambitions. This independence can create a sense of admiration. When a man sees that a woman has a full and meaningful life, he often becomes more aware that her time and attention are valuable. Being part of her life becomes something meaningful rather than something automatic. Stepping back from constant availability also encourages emotional clarity. When a woman is always the one maintaining communication, it can be difficult to see how much interest the other person truly has. But when she allows space for the other person to step forward, his actions become more visible. If he values the connection, he will often find ways to reach out and maintain it. He will initiate conversations, ask about her life, and show interest in staying connected. His effort becomes a reflection of his genuine interest rather than a response to constant pursuit. If the effort fades when she stops being constantly available, that clarity is valuable as well. It reveals that the connection may have depended heavily on her energy rather than mutual interest. While this realization can be disappointing, it protects her from continuing to invest deeply in something that is not balanced. The purpose of stepping back from constant availability is not to create distance out of manipulation. It is to create a healthier dynamic where both people contribute to the relationship. When attention and effort flow from both sides, the connection becomes stronger and more authentic. For many women, learning to step back can feel uncomfortable at first. They may worry that reducing their availability will make them seem distant or uninterested. But in reality, healthy space often strengthens attraction and respect. It shows that the relationship is part of her life rather than the center of her identity. When a woman honors her time and energy, she communicates something powerful without needing to say a word. She shows that her presence is meaningful and that the connection deserves mutual effort. And often when a man realizes that her attention is no longer guaranteed at every moment, he begins to appreciate the value of that attention far more deeply than before. When a woman shifts her focus toward her own growth and happiness, she begins to see herself in a more positive light. Something remarkable begins to happen not only within her, but also in the way others perceive her. Personal growth creates a kind of quiet confidence that cannot be faked. It shows in the way she speaks, the way she carries herself, and the way she prioritizes the direction of her life. A woman who invests in her own development sends a powerful message. She is not waiting for someone else to define her happiness. Many women enter relationships with the beautiful intention of building a shared future. They give love generously, support their partner's ambitions, and often invest emotionally in the success of the relationship. But sometimes, in the process of nurturing the connection, they can slowly begin to neglect parts of themselves, their personal dreams, interests, friendships, and passions. Over time, this can make the relationship feel like the center of their world. When a woman redirects some of that energy back into her own life, it transforms the entire dynamic. Instead of focusing on what the relationship is or is not giving her, she begins focusing on what she wants to build for herself. She invests time in her career, her creativity, her education, her health, and the experiences that make her feel alive. This shift does something very powerful. It reminds her that her identity is much bigger than any relationship. She becomes someone who is actively shaping her own life rather than waiting for someone else to bring meaning into it. That sense of purpose often radiates outward in ways that others can feel. Men are often drawn to women who have their own sense of direction and fulfillment. When a woman is passionate about her goals and engaged in her own growth, she brings energy and inspiration into the relationship. She is not seeking someone to rescue her from boredom or loneliness. Instead, she invites someone to share in the life she is already building. This kind of independence changes the emotional atmosphere of a relationship. When a woman has her own ambitions and interests, the time she spends with a man becomes intentional rather than dependent. She is choosing to be there, not relying on the relationship as her only source of happiness. Choice carries a different kind of emotional weight than dependence. When a man realizes that a woman is with him because she wants to be, not because she needs to be, it often deepens his respect for her. He understands that her presence in the relationship is meaningful. Another important aspect of focusing on personal growth is that it strengthens self-confidence. When a woman sets goals and works toward them, she begins to trust her own abilities. Every achievement, whether large or small, becomes evidence that she is capable of shaping her life in powerful ways. This confidence influences how she communicates, how she makes decisions, and how she responds to challenges. Instead of feeling uncertain about her worth, she carries herself with a sense of quiet assurance. She knows what she brings into a relationship, and she knows that her value does not depend on someone else's approval. Confidence often creates a magnetic quality. People are naturally drawn to individuals who appear comfortable with themselves. When a woman believes in her own potential and actively pursues her dreams, that belief becomes visible to others. Focusing on personal growth also brings emotional resilience. Life inevitably includes moments of disappointment or uncertainty, especially in relationships. But when a woman has multiple sources of fulfillment, career ambitions, personal interests, supportive friendship, she is less likely to feel emotionally shaken by temporary challenges. Instead of placing all her emotional energy into the relationship, she maintains balance. This balance allows her to approach the relationship from a place of strength rather than vulnerability. She can love deeply without losing herself in the process. Another beautiful aspect of personal growth is that it keeps life exciting and evolving. A woman who is exploring her interests and pursuing her ambitions continues to learn and change. She develops new ideas, experiences new environments, and meets new people who expand her perspective. These experiences enrich the relationship as well. Conversations become more interesting, shared moments become more meaningful, and the connection feels dynamic rather than stagnant. A partner becomes someone who witnesses and celebrates her growth rather than someone responsible for creating it. Friendships also play a crucial role in this process. Maintaining strong connections with supportive friends adds joy and balance to life. Friends provide encouragement, laughter, and understanding that complements the emotional support found in a romantic relationship. When a woman nurtures these friendships, she builds a strong emotional network around her. This network reminds her that her life is filled with meaningful relationships beyond romantic love. It also prevents the relationship from carrying the entire weight of her emotional world. Men often respect women who maintain strong friendships and personal interests because it demonstrates independence. It shows that she values connection in many forms, and that she has built a life rich with experiences and relationships. Another powerful effect of focusing on personal growth is that it naturally shifts the balance of attention. Instead of constantly analyzing the relationship or worrying about whether someone is giving enough effort, she becomes focused on her own journey. Her time and energy are invested in things that help her grow. This shift can sometimes create curiosity and admiration from a man. When he sees that she is building a fulfilling life and pursuing her goals, he may begin to view her differently. She becomes someone with depth, ambition, and purpose, someone whose presence adds something valuable to his world. Ultimately, focusing on personal growth and happiness is not about distancing yourself from a relationship. It is about strengthening yourself as an individual. When a woman builds a life filled with passion, purpose, and self-respect, she becomes someone who brings extraordinary energy into every connection she forms. Her happiness no longer depends on someone else's attention. Instead, it grows from the life she is creating for herself. And when a man sees that kind of independence and confidence, he feels like he can take on the world. He often realizes that being part of her world is not something to take lightly, it is something to appreciate, respect, and value deeply. When a woman steps back and allows silence to enter the space of a relationship, something very revealing begins to happen. Silence has a unique way of uncovering truths that constant communication sometimes hides. When someone is always reaching out, always checking in, and always maintaining the emotional flow of the connection, they are creating a strong and healthy connection. It can be difficult to see how much effort the other person is truly willing to give. But when that steady stream of attention slows down, the natural intentions of both people begin to surface. Many women naturally fill emotional space in relationships. They ask questions, keep conversations alive, and make sure that communication continues. These actions often come from a genuine desire to stay connected and maintain closeness. But when one person consistently carries the responsibility of keeping the relationship active, then the relationship becomes a source of stress and tension. The true level of interest from the other person can remain unclear. Silence changes that dynamic. When a woman stops filling every gap with messages, calls, or emotional reassurance, she creates space for the other person to step forward. That space becomes a quiet test of intention. It reveals whether the man is interested enough to maintain the connection on his own. At first, silence can feel uncomfortable. When people are used to frequent communication, even a short pause can feel unusual. A woman might feel tempted to break that silence quickly because she does not want the relationship to fade or feel distant. But allowing space to exist is often one of the most powerful ways to gain clarity. When a man genuinely values a connection, silence usually motivates him to reach out. He becomes curious about what she is doing, how her day is going, or why the conversation has slowed. That curiosity often leads to action. He may send a message, start a conversation, or make plans to reconnect. This effort becomes meaningful because it is voluntary. It is not prompted by constant reminders or repeated attempts to keep communication alive. Instead, it comes from his own desire to maintain the bond. When someone chooses to reach out on their own, it often reflects genuine interest. Silence also allows a man to experience the emotional difference between having someone's consistent attention and not having it. When a woman is always present, her attention can sometimes feel routine. But when she becomes less predictable in her communication, her presence begins to feel more valuable. The absence of constant interaction creates contrast. That contrast can make him realize how much he enjoyed talking to her, sharing moments with her, or receiving her emotional support. Sometimes people only recognize the importance of someone's presence when it is no longer automatically available. Another important aspect of silence is that it encourages reflection. Without the distraction of constant conversation, a man may find himself thinking more about the relationship. He may replay past conversations, remember shared experiences, or think about the role she plays in his life. Reflection can deepen emotional awareness. When someone has the space to think about a connection without immediate distractions, they often begin to understand their feelings more clearly. A man may realize that he misses her voice, her humor, or the comfort of talking to her. Silence can also reveal priorities. When communication is no longer being maintained by one person, the other person's response becomes a clear indicator of their level of investment. If he values the relationship, he will likely take steps to keep the connection alive. This might appear in simple but meaningful ways. He may initiate conversations more frequently, ask about her life with genuine curiosity, or suggest spending time together. These actions demonstrate that he is willing to contribute effort rather than simply receiving attention. If silence leads to distance rather than effort, that clarity can also be valuable. While it may be disappointing, it reveals an important truth about the relationship. It shows whether the connection depended mainly on her effort rather than mutual interest. Clarity is one of the greatest gifts silence can offer. When a woman stops filling every emotional space, she gains the opportunity to observe how the relationship functions without constant maintenance. She can see whether the other person naturally steps forward or allows the connection to fade. This awareness helps her make decisions based on reality rather than hope. Instead of guessing how someone feels or wondering why communication feels one-sided, she can observe the pattern that emerges when space is allowed. Silence also strengthens a woman's sense of independence. By stepping back from constant communication, she reminds herself that her life is full and meaningful beyond the relationship. She spends time focusing on her interests, her work, her friendships, and the activities that bring her joy. This shift often improves emotional balance. Instead of feeling anxious about every small change in communication, she becomes more centered in her own routine. Her happiness becomes rooted in her own life rather than in the immediate responses of another person. Men often notice this change as well. A woman who does not constantly chase communication appears calm and confident. She is not demanding attention or seeking reassurance every moment. Instead, she allows the relationship to breathe and unfold naturally. This calm confidence can be very attractive because it reflects emotional strength. It shows that she values the connection but does not depend on constant validation to feel secure. Ultimately, silence is not about playing games or trying to manipulate someone's emotions. It is about creating space where genuine effort and intention can reveal themselves. When communication becomes balanced rather than one-sided, the relationship has a stronger foundation. By allowing silence to exist, a woman gives both herself and the other person the opportunity to show what they truly want. His actions will reflect his interest, and her response can then be guided by clarity rather than uncertainty. In many cases, silence becomes the moment when a man realizes that the connection is worth protecting. When the constant presence he once relied on becomes quieter, he may recognize the importance of the woman who brought that warmth and attention into his life. And that realization often inspires him to step forward with the effort that keeps the relationship alive. When a woman begins to understand that her presence in someone's life is valuable, the entire dynamic of a relationship can change. Many women naturally give love, attention, and emotional support generously. They care deeply and often try to nurture the relationship in every possible way. But sometimes when someone gives too much without recognizing their own worth, the other person may slowly begin to see that presence as something ordinary rather than something special. Understanding that your presence is a privilege does not mean becoming arrogant or distant. It simply means recognizing that your time, your emotional energy, your loyalty, and your love are meaningful gifts. When a woman carries this understanding within herself, it shows in the way she interacts with others. She becomes someone who values her own presence and expects it to be valued by others as well. A relationship thrives when both people appreciate each other. But appreciation often grows stronger when both individuals understand that the connection is something special, not something guaranteed. When a woman believes that she must constantly prove her worth or compete for attention, the balance of the relationship can become uneven. She may end up giving more than she receives simply because she fears losing the connection. However, when she realizes that her presence itself carries value, her mindset shifts. She no longer feels the need to chase validation or constantly seek reassurance. Instead, she moves through the relationship with quiet confidence, knowing that what she offers emotionally and personally is meaningful. This confidence can be felt by others even when it is not spoken aloud. The way she communicates becomes calmer and more self-assured. She listens, shares, and connects without feeling the need to prove herself. Her interactions come from a place of self-respect rather than insecurity. Men often respond strongly to this kind of self-respect. When a man sees that a woman values her own time and energy, he becomes more aware of the importance of his behavior. He realizes that her attention is not something to take lightly. Instead of assuming she will always be there no matter what he does, he begins to recognize that her presence in his life is something worth appreciating. Another powerful aspect of recognizing your own value is that it changes the way you respond to effort. When a woman believes her presence is meaningful, she naturally gravitates toward people who treat her with care and consideration. She notices when someone invests time, attention, and sincerity into the relationship. At the same time, she becomes less tolerant of situations where she feels overlooked or undervalued. Instead of trying harder to earn someone's attention, she calmly steps back and focuses on environments where her presence is welcomed and appreciated. This shift does not come from pride, it comes from self-respect. A woman who values herself understands that healthy relationships are built on mutual appreciation. Both people should feel grateful to share time and experiences together. When a man senses that a woman values herself, he often becomes more thoughtful in how he interacts with her. He may pay closer attention to the way he communicates, the effort he invests, and the way he shows care. This is not because she demands special treatment, but because her self-respect naturally encourages respectful behavior. Recognizing that your presence is a privilege also strengthens emotional boundaries. A woman who understands her value does not feel pressured to stay in situations that diminish her peace of mind. If she notices patterns of neglect, disrespect, or indifference, she becomes capable of stepping away rather than trying to force change. This ability to step back protects her emotional well-being. It also sends a powerful message about her standards. She communicates through her actions that she values relationships built on kindness, effort, and mutual respect. Another important part of this mindset is the way it influences everyday interactions. A woman who values her presence tends to carry herself with calm confidence. She enjoys conversations without trying to impress, shares her thoughts honestly, and participates in the relationship as an equal rather than someone seeking approval. This authenticity often makes the connection feel more genuine. When neither person feels the need to perform or prove their worth, the relationship becomes more relaxed and enjoyable. Both individuals can appreciate each other for who they truly are. Men often admire women who carry this sense of self-worth because it reflects emotional strength. A woman who knows her value does not rely on constant praise or reassurance to feel secure. She stands confidently in who she is, and that confidence creates a sense of admiration. Over time, this dynamic can deepen the man's appreciation for her. When he recognizes that she is someone who values herself, he understands that maintaining the relationship requires genuine effort and care. Her presence becomes something meaningful that he wants to protect. Another benefit of recognizing your value is that it encourages balance. Instead of one person constantly giving while the other receives, both individuals become invested in maintaining the connection. Each person contributes time, attention, and emotional support. This balance strengthens the relationship because it ensures that both people feel respected and appreciated. The connection grows through shared effort rather than one-sided pursuit. Ultimately, understanding that your presence is a privilege is not about expecting perfection from others. It is about remembering that the qualities you bring into a relationship, kindness, loyalty, understanding, and emotional depth are meaningful. When a woman carries that awareness within herself, she naturally attracts relationships where those qualities are recognized and valued. She does not need to demand respect because her self-respect quietly sets the standard. And when a man realizes that the woman in his life values herself deeply and does not take her own presence lightly, he often begins to see her differently. He recognizes that being part of her world is not something ordinary, it is something worth appreciating, protecting, and committing to.